Hi, Jenna. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello.
Hello, fantastic. Let's
Nice
just,
to meet you.
nice to meet you. Let's give it, where are you from? Where are you calling in from?
I'm actually originally from Chicago, but I'm in Vancouver, Canada right now.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm actually in the far-flung bits of Chicagoland, actually a little bit exurbia, rural,
Yeah.
semi-rural. Yeah.
I was born in Naperville and I grew up in Crystal Lake. Where are you?
A little bit past Naperville, in Oswego, which is
Yeah.
another kind of, yeah, on the
Yeah.
Fox River. It's very nice.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm giving a talk in at 4:30 in room 4. And I was looking at the
Okay,
different topics and I thought yours looked great.
super. Well, welcome.
Thanks.
I don't know if the others are coming in. Ingamar, are you going to join us?
It looks like we're the only people in here.
Looks like so far. Well, we can have a good conversation.
Totally.
What's your talk about?
I'm talking about delicious food, creative gardening, self reliance, and time outside, climate resilience 101.
Cool.
Thanks. Yeah. What do you do outside of giving fun conference lectures during
I've
pandemics?
yeah, exactly. I work with corporate sustainability, so working with large and medium-sized companies all around all sorts of issues around sustainability, and have been doing this for a very, very long time. I like to say on a bad day, I say I'm a dinosaur. On a good day, I say I've been a pioneer for the past almost 30 years doing this work. So,
Well, thank you for doing it
and
because I do the same type of work. So if it wasn't done before, then we would have had to make an industry from scratch, but you guys did. So I
yeah,
really,
no, exactly. And it's wonderful to see how it's just blossomed and grown, and people have entire career, degrees and careers, and it's fantastic to see how, we can never have imagined it taking off the way it has.
yeah.
And especially the ESG stuff, it's just been this, the uptake we've been waiting for 15, 20 years. I actually started my career in banking in the very first, what we called then social responsible investing, SRI, which is kind of a great great grandparent to what's now ESG. So it's really heartwarming to see, and also to see how much better everybody is at asking good questions and getting down to the metrics and getting down to what really matters in terms of the business model. It really has evolved well, very heartwarming, and evolved to the point of where I'm asking these questions, which is, what's the role of the demand side of the equation? So, we have the supply side and the demand side, and the sustainability work that I've been involved in and have observed over these years has all been supply side. So, as I like to say, we've made a lot of better widgets, a lot greener widgets, and we've helped companies really improve their process in making those widgets better, creating value for them and for other stakeholders. But we really haven't dealt with the demand side about why is it or isn't that shoppers pick up your product. In a B2B world, it's a little more complicated, but nonetheless, what are some of the drivers that we can also then, how can we look at the analogy in B2B, and then also our B2B customer, which is probably a shopper like you or me, maybe 2 or 3 chains, steps down. But at the end of the day, someone's making a purchasing decision. And what are the signals, and how can we engage so that we can use the power of the demand side of the supply and demand equation to really accelerate the uptake in a low carbon society. I mean, and I use sustainability and low carbon society or low carbon economy kind of as shorthand, because I think at this point, for this level of conversation, it can cover so much. It can be fair trade, and that's part of the dilemma. Is the confusion that's caused for the person making the shopping decisions. So I just use this kind of general sustainable or greener. I try not to use greener, but the transition to a low carbon economy is a single bullet. So
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. This is right up my alley for real.
Well, great. Well, let's just chat. I'll spend a
Yeah.
couple
I
seconds
mean, hi, nice to meet
outlining,
you.
and we can just chat.
Yeah, let's go for it. What you got?
So that's the kind of the background as to why I'm starting this investigation a little bit more seriously. I mean, I've been really interested in the past 3 or 4 years, and I've made a couple stop and start approaches to it. First, really looking at the fashion industry, because it has such a dirty footprint. It's also a luxury item, in the sense of it's not food or transport to school or to work. You know, it's something that most of us don't really need on a daily basis to add to our wardrobes. And also it's so much about personal identity. So for lots of reasons, I kind of started off with the fashion world and dove in, and it's wonderful to see how much the sustainable fashion industry has gotten traction in the last couple of years. It's really taking off. And again, it's evolving to the Higg index, and there's just so much information available. You can actually make really good decisions. Question comes back to, are people making those decisions on a consistent basis, and what more needs to be done? So, I mean, the good news is kind of pre-pandemic, we were seeing more and more evidence of consumers really being, and people being very interested in this. I try very hard not to say the word consumer, because I think it's alienating, and it takes away from us, and yet it always slips in, so excuse that. But we saw NYU, New York University, did a really great piece of research. I don't know if you saw it, that showed that over half the growth of consumer packaged goods in the last couple of years came from goods that had some sort of green sustainable indicator. They didn't get into the judgment, but if it had some sort of marking that this product was better for the environment, was good for the environment, that segment of it brought half the growth in the market. So it's really significant. And they did that by SKUs. So really hard data, not what shoppers reported, it's actually what actually happened at the till. So that's incredibly exciting to see. That's where the growth has come from. On the downside, it's only 16% of shopper spend, but nonetheless, it was showing some good growth. But we also know at the same time, and Harvard's just come out with some more studies, and other people, and this has been around for a long time, but I think Harvard's done some more good work on it, is that there's a big lag between shoppers' intentions and what they actually do. And about 5 years ago, there was some good work looking at what price points really matter. So at the time it was under the $70 range, people were willing to make the choice for the fair trade chocolate or the better t-shirt. But when it came to a car or a computer or an iPad, other things became more important, and those considerations dropped away. So we also have an indication that price is one of the important variables, the size, the kind of, and I think price could be an indicator for durability of the product as well. Is this going to be in my life for a long time, or at that price point, just other things are more important? We don't really know. We haven't been able to drill down on that. So we now enter where we are now today, which is things are radically changed in a very quick period of time. And consumer spending has dropped off a cliff. I can't quote the number, but today's newspaper said it was the sharpest drop in consumer spending in the US since kind of forever in the month of March, and expected to continue into April. And so it's a tabula rasa moment. We've gone from lots and lots of spending to almost none. We have quite a bit of pent up demand, and we've got people who have had a chance to think about things and experience life in a very different way. And so the question is, when they come back, can we use this moment somehow to really harness that demand and come back into an economy that's transitioning more rapidly? 2 bits of data, and then let's just chat. But in case you didn't see it, and I'm just going to pull it up in front of me, so I've got it. Porto Novelli. So I hear a lot of chatter from my sustainability peers that, oh yes, consumers are going to come back. More people are saying they're going to shop sustainably. Well, Porto Novelli is the only one that's come up seen with data. They did a 1,000-person survey in the US on April 1st, and found 73% said that they would learn, they want to, when they learn of a company's COVID specific response, they're more likely to purchase from those companies, trust them, and be loyal to them. So their question is a company's behavior during COVID going to influence shopping decisions? And they found basically 73% said yes, and that people would remember how companies responded. So that's not exactly sustainability, but it's around corporate behavior that then starts opening up other questions. And kind of on a similar but not quite path, Futera out of the UK did a pulse survey of only 200 respondents, 100 UK, 100 US, asking, should we, the global we, should we act with the same urgency around climate change as we have against the pandemic? And it was 80%, what was it? 69% in the US and 60% in the UK said yes, and 58 said yes in the US. So it's a tiny, that's not statistically robust, 200 people, but it's an indication of, oh, we really responded quickly to this. We could do equally with climate change, and 58% said yes. So that's the kind of the context as far as like a nutshell context of where we are. Would love to hear what you think about it, and then we'll see how we go in the conversation. I've got a model and a framework we can talk about, or we can just chat.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I just joined your chat, because we really do this. We work in such a similar space. I do a lot of communications for social impact programs, and I've also built social impact programs for various companies. So I get really excited because I'm like, oh, this is the stuff that I do. I'm curious with the, so are you looking, it sounds like a lot of this is, obviously super data driven. Are you looking at this from a research perspective to try and get companies to make better decisions, or are you building the program itself? I'm curious, like, what your role is in this context and what you're doing with this data.
At the moment, it's really to start a dialogue quickly around, as sustainability professionals, we've never dealt with the demand side. And so what is it that we can do, and then to go out and to do it. I have an analysis of kind of what's gone wrong. I think that the solutions that I've seen proposed and have been launched over the last 20 years have largely been around front of package, I can't remember what they call them, but front of package indicators, be it in Germany, a Blue Angel, a Rainforest Alliance green frog, a panda bear, a fair trade, and it's not working to the extent we really want it to work and need it to work. And my analysis is because it's confusing the part of the brain that makes those decisions. So I don't know if you ever heard of the methodology for understanding behavior change called SWITCH by Dan and Sheep Heath. So I use SWITCH, which is, you've got an elephant, which is the emotional body, a rider, which is the brain trying to go down a path. And so if the rider is confused, given too many choices, is overwhelmed, they're not going to be able to steer the elephant. If the elephant is spooked, which right now, oh my gosh, the elephant is spooked, or feeling lazy, like if this is too hard, the elephant's not going to move, and the path has to be clear. Well, right now the path is not clear because nobody's shopping for good reason. But when the path becomes clear, how can we make that path even broader? So using that simple model, I see that the solutions to date have all been only impacting the rider and have overwhelmed the rider with choice. Like, how do I choose between fair trade and a green frog? Even if you can get them to that level of conversation. And so to me, that rider-focused solution needs improvement. And so I'm just looking at, I would love to hear your ideas about rider, elephant, path types of solutions. But to your other question is, I really don't know where I'm going with this. It's just all exploration. I'm driven by passion and curiosity. I'm not expecting to earn my livelihood off of this research right now. It's too early, but I want to get some good conversations. I'm writing a blog on Green Biz just on this issue.
I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, to really get a conversation going within our profession and to start working with better marketers and agencies to really understand the power of engaging. Because I like to say, very few people wake up in the world go, I want to buy chocolate that's got some slavery in it.
Yeah.
And yet
it's true.
we end up doing that.
There's a presentation
Hi,
that I'd
Stuart.
love to.
Second, somebody joined. Hi, Stuart.
Oh, that's great.
Please go ahead, Jenna.
There's a presentation that I would love to share with you that has some of this data from Europe and different studies that they've done with consumers. It was given to a conference that I was at where there were a lot of people who worked in CPG, and they were talking about kind of certain trends that have been happening. So I would love to send that to you and get your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I'm sharing one of the slides from that presentation in my presentation later today. So.
Okay, great. I'm giving you my email here and I'll connect over LinkedIn as well.
Perfect.
So Stuart, we're just having a chat about the role of the demand side of the supply and demand side equation for speeding up the transition to a lower economy, a lower carbon, more sustainable economy, to use kind of big words to capture lots of meaning. And the reason that I've come to this point after a very long career in corporate sustainability is the uptake hasn't been the demand side of the equation is actually the powerful side of the equation. And as a sustainability expert, I've been practicing supply side economics, which don't really work. They've been effective, and to create the marketplace, but now we need to get more people to the marketplace. And pre-pandemic, we were doing okay. And I can go through the indicators that I just covered, but this is a tabula rasa moment where consumption, shopping has kind of fallen off of a cliff. And as it comes back on, we have a moment to really ask some deeper questions and figure out, as sustainability professionals and those of us working with B2C companies, how can we do things differently? And I propose the framework from Dan and Chip Heath of an elephant being the emotional body of the person making the shopping decisions, the writer trying to get the elephant down a path. So you need the mind, the emotion, and the path clear before you're going to see real behavior change. And just to catch up, I think most of what myself and my peers over the years have done is we've all just gone to writer solutions such as eco labels. I don't know how many thousands of the conversations I've had in my career around, oh, we need an eco label, let's go develop one, and my eco label is going to be better than yours. And now there's another, I think, kind of almost equivalent, which is an app-based decision-making guidance scheme. And there's quite a few of them out there that will help you choose which diapers or which clothing brand to shop from based on their criteria. And what I'd love to hear your views, and then to kind of go through this idea of it takes more than just either a rational brain type solution. We also need to engage the emotions, and the path has to be clear.
Yeah, Diane, I think that's a really interesting kind of perspective, because one of the biggest issues we're coming up against now is the impact of culture. And I work in an area where in sustainable finance, and a particular area in terms of more value-based initiatives, looking around the areas of how faith interacts with finance. And I have a foundation I'm a co-founder of, where we're looking at a new style of doing impact investing and attracting funds and money into a more philanthropic way of investing, so that people can actually see how money is a different kind of medium as to what it is now. Just go back to my first point, I think one of the greatest concerns, and just listening to your kind of quick summary you kind of provided me, having just come into this from another room, is that we are seeing a different perspective unrolling because of something that partly was engaged by ourselves in terms of closing economies down and stopping things from working, and kind of freeing up the mind and creating a space where we can actually look at something in a different way. but also there's also a perspective of the threat that's been behind this whole kind of avenue of change that's happened in the year so far. So this is an interesting discussion, say, to come into, because it's something which we're very keen to work with, and we're trying to work with a number of organizations around the world, including in the Southeast Asia, in terms of seeing how an economy can kind of unravel itself in terms of the way it's kind of tied itself up into a knot without creating what is the same problems it's had beforehand.
Yeah.
So, we've all seen the way that people have seen the environment recover to some extent, or some other aspects of recover because of what's been going on. And how do we manage our way back into this environment and economy without creating new dangers or bringing the old ones back in again?
Precisely. Like, why would we want to come back from this moment and recreate everything again when it's really not been working?
No. Yeah,
and we've got lots of evidence points of that, that most people can relate to.
We've sat there watching we were meant to have COP26 here in the UK this year. There's been so much going on over the last 12 to 18 months around the climate emergency and the focus around how things, and suddenly this has happened. And so we need to kind of grab this opportunity to make it kind of become an embedded culture change, so people can start to understand how they can act differently as individuals and make a difference. And then how also collectively as an ecosystem, we can also make that difference.
So I'd like to ask you, one of my areas of interest is how we all select our banks. And I've run a couple qualitative study groups and spoken to a bunch of bankers, but Stuart, I'd love to hear, why do you think it is people don't put their money into institutions where they know where it's being invested?
I think, okay, I'm going to take a very broad brush kind of perspective on this. I think part of that comes about that people don't necessarily understand how banks work.
Yep.
I really still believe that the majority of people think they walk in with their, kind of $100 or £100 or €100, and the person takes it off them and they walk to a room at the back and put it on a shelf. And then when you want it back, they go back to the shop, pick it up and bring it back to you, And if you check the serial numbers, you'd probably be very disappointed to realize that it doesn't work like that. It's also the fact that, we went through a crisis in 07, 08, which was very different from the one we're sitting at the moment. But we never really, there was a balance sheet recovery over a period where the banks were doing their very best to try and recover themselves so that they could support the economies kind of recovering, but doing exactly the same thing as beforehand. So, I mean, I'm not trying to, I don't want to create kind of any kind of potential disagreement around this with anybody, but you don't always correct things by doing the same things you've always done that actually made it go wrong in the first place, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think for the individuals, I think people again, haven't understood the real terminology of what money means, which is quite interesting because in Islamic finance, as a kind of a realm that I'm a specialist in, Islamic finance is a form of medium. It's an intermediary. It's not something that you use to create more money from. So it's a trade. It's an ability to trade. So if people understood a little bit more about what money was about from that respect, as opposed to seeing money coming from money, that may make that relationship with the banks a little bit easier, because they would probably want to understand then what exactly their money is doing.
Yeah, in my qualitative research, that was the number one reason, is they just didn't feel like they understood it well enough. Second was they didn't have the power. They felt like it was a power dynamic where they didn't have power. Third is they didn't realize there were choices available to them. So they hadn't heard of some of the solutions available in some of the banks. And fourth, which was only in a couple of cases, but coming out of Switzerland, was cynicism. It's like, there's no such thing as a green bank. You're joking. That's all greenwash. Even when there was enough evidence, it's like, just don't believe it. So those were the four kind of consistent barriers that I found to why people. And then the fifth, well, actually it's higher up on the list, is it's just too difficult to move money. It's too expensive to change banks. It's too much of a pain and too
Yeah.
expensive.
I mean, in
So
the
there's kind of
UK,
a path issue. There's a path issue. There's a big writer issue, and then there's this. To me, the big surprise was the cynicism
Mm,
of greenwash, which is an elephant issue.
yeah. I mean, the greenwash, the kind of the whole way that it's perceived by that customer is always going to be a problem. I don't see how in the current banking system we're going to get around that. There are banks that. So the interesting one I always find interesting is the story of Triodos, in terms of that.
Yeah.
When they started out, they were looking to raise money to invest in ethical, social impacts and green. And the easiest way to do it was that they went through this whole process and went, well, we might as well be a bank. And they almost kind of did it in reverse order. And I love the way they kind of explain this in their kind of ethos and the way they operate, because actually that puts the customer at ease a bit. And they say, well, okay, you've got to be a bank, but I can trust you, because actually, primarily, you're not a bank. You're actually looking to do something good with our money whilst we lend it to you.
Yeah.
So maybe more banks. One of my big queries around this is that when we kind of list banks and we look at the kind of the broader banking marketplace, and you look at the big banks, it's the whole kind of tug of war between shareholders versus customers. So,
I think that holds for any company, though. I don't think that's specific to banking.
Oh, I totally agree. You're absolutely right. I mean, the shareholder versus the stakeholder and the value that brings into place. We did some work over the last year around the common good and the value of that, in terms of trying to create a perspective in business and the economy that's more related to something that's more meaningful. But that part of that kind of drill down is that relationship that the shareholder has with their kind of equity within an organization. But with a bank, where there's so much opaqueness in the operational value of that, how can the average shareholder really understand what's going on? Or actually, just take that a bit kind of more kind of to a meaningful level, how does the customer understand what's going on? And how can they relate that back to the relationship the shareholder has with its ownership of the bank?
Yeah.
Which is why I bank with a mutual. Because I bank with a building society, and I did it, and just purely on that basis, that it meant that I now know that I'm also, in theory, the shareholder as well, but I don't have to be a shareholder. There's no accountability back to me. And I sign my rights away. And when my children open accounts, that they sign the rights away that if ever they demutualize, there's no money in it. So there's no conflict of interest or kind of incentive in that, which is good.
Jenna, any comments, either on banking or an industry you're more fluent with?
I'm a communication strategist, so the banking part is, I leave that up to my accountant and bookkeeper. I mean, it's really quite amazing though how on top of it they are. So all the systems that I have in place for my personal finance, and I'm really obsessed with it. It comes from people who know what they're talking about, like you two. I have a question for both of you. Have you heard of the app called Yuka, Y-U-K-A? So it is, really.
Oh no, I don't know that one. Sorry, I don't know that one.
Yeah. So it started in Belgium, and it's really hot in Belgium and the Netherlands right now. I spend a lot of time in Amsterdam, so I've seen people use this all the time. But you scan an SKU, and it'll tell you whether or not the product's safe for you. And it has not only food on there, but additionally, like, shampoo, lotions, and things like that. And when I first downloaded it, I'm like, okay, I'll just, I'll download this, I'll use it twice, and I'll be like, okay, that was a cool novel thing, whatever. Now I'm obsessed with it. And what's crazy is that they've raised a ton of money. Like, it's a French company, they're doing really well, and their criteria. So to your point, Diane, about kind of the emotional criteria, they have things like, this product contains these ingredients, and these are some scientific studies that showed what we think these ingredients do, right? In terms of
so personal safety. Yeah, personal safety is a big driver. Food and cosmetics.
Et cetera. Yes, exactly. And I think that, who knows? I think it's too early, just looking at the research and studies that I do in my line of work, because I'm responsible for making that emotional argument to people, right? And looking at the studies, it's just too soon for us to say what's going to happen in the coming months from COVID, because we've never dealt with something like this. in today's like modern world structure. But I am curious about I think what people are going to be looking at, and I would love to kind of look into studies and talk to some people who've been doing psychology research on this, but I will think that personal safety driver for everyone is going to be huge. Whether it's like, is this the right mask for me? Does it actually affix to my face in the way that it needs to in order to, is this the right like product that I'm using? If I'm going to the store and I only have this much money, what am I buying? Right. I'm also, from sending in other presentations, DIY, I think is going to be huge. So like do it yourself types of products as well. I think we're going to see a lot of people selling things that require some effort, right? It's no longer just going to be the IKEA bookshelf that you're assembling. I'm curious.
So a rebirth of the maker movement, or another put more wind in its sails.
Another phase. Yeah, for sure. I think we're already seeing that with people like, mix your own body scrub. But I think we're going to see more and more of that going forward, just because people want to feel like they have a sense of control over something. So maybe it's
great, and that they can do it. It's time for you to for your presentation.
Yeah, my presentation is at 4:30. Actually, well, sorry, that doesn't mean anything to you guys. My presentation's in exactly an hour in room 4, so come.
Great.
Yeah.
So somebody else has this room now.
I guess they do.
Possibly Lee. So I'm going to reach out to both of you on LinkedIn so we can continue conversation and keep in touch. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It was really nice meeting you, Diane. And
nice to meet you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.